Good evening, everybody. Great to see you all. Thanks for coming along to the Glasgow Cycle Road Safety Roadshow. You'll have a good evening tonight. It's going to be very informative, a lot of information. I'm going to be imparting over the next sort of 25 minutes, half an hour or so. What I don't want this to end up, and I hope you don't think that this is going to be the police coming up and pointing their finger and lecturing at you and telling you the rights and the wrongs and insulting your intelligence. That's not the purpose of the evening. It's meant to be an information evening. We're going to cover quite a lot this evening. Probably in quite a lot of detail about the highway codes, the updated rules specifically that came into effect back in 2022. And we'll talk a wee bit about cycle legislation and also our new DESC system as well, which is the ability to report crime via an electronic portal. So for those of you who have got video cameras on your helmets, is there quite a few in the room that have got maybe video cameras on their helmets? Yeah, excellent one there, brilliant. Good. Yeah, good to see. Then it's going to give the ability, if you witness a crime out in the road or are potentially a victim of a crime, if it's a close pass, somebody passes you too close when you're out on your bike, you've got that footage and you want to report it to the police. There's this portal that's going to give you the opportunity to do that. As I said, hopefully you'll get quite a lot of good information from myself tonight. So I'll start off just with the formal introduction. So PC Stewart Sinclair is my name. I'm a road police officer that works through in Edinburgh. I've been a police officer now for 20 years in road policing for a total of 13. I currently have an operational role, but I also do a lot of road safety work with Edinburgh City Council in and around traffic management, as well as a lot of road safety presentations that I do with a lot of the schools through in Edinburgh as well. So it's kind of a hybrid role. Part and parcel of my role, being a road police officer, is dealing with road accidents, collisions on a daily basis. And unfortunately, over the years, since I joined up, even more so since being in road policing, I've had to deal with an awful lot of fatal and serious accidents. It's one of the hardest parts of my job. It is challenging, time consuming as well, and very resource intensive for myself and my colleagues out there. So if I can avoid having to go to these on a daily basis by giving road safety talks to schools, etc., coming along speaking to yourselves to try and get that information out to keep ourselves safe on the network, I would do it every single day in my service if I could, because I think it's really, really worthwhile. And yeah, some of the other organisations that I present to are the military, as well as Scottish Water as well. So yeah, like I touched on just at the beginning there, I will talk a wee bit about highway code rules as I said, specifically the new rules that came into effect from 2022, a wee bit about cycling legalities, offences under the Road Traffic Act, 1988. We'll talk a wee bit about bike setup and what you should have on your pedal cycle out there on the road, especially this time of year. I'll talk a wee bit about the road safety audit process that I get involved in with Edinburgh City Council. And as I said, Police Scotland's DESC system, which I'll touch on just at the end of the presentation. So the updated highway code rules, they came into effect on the 29th of January 2022, so coming up 4 years now. And the biggest change with the highway code rule is that there's this new hierarchy now of road users. Is everybody aware of this? Has anyone heard of the new hierarchy? A lot of nodding heads, that's great. That's a good start. So yeah, the hierarchy was brought into effect, and it basically places these road users that are most at risk in the event of a collision at the top of the hierarchy. Okay, so you've got your pedestrians right at the top, and you've got your heavy good vehicles down at the bottom. Okay, so we flip that in its head. You'd be the heavies are responsible for the cars, responsible for the bikes, the horse-drawn carriages, right the way down to the pedestrians. So there's this hierarchy now where the higher up or the lower down the list you are, the more responsibility you have for the more vulnerable road users. So it is important that, it goes without saying, all road users are aware of the highway code, are considerate to other road users, and also understand their responsibility for the safety of others. At the end of the day, it's shared road space out there. We're all sharing, the same space to get from A to B, okay? And these rules are there, okay, as a guide, but also as I said, if you don't abide by these rules, as we'll find out later on, you can end up being prosecuted, not just as a cyclist, but as a driver as well, but we'll cover a wee bit of that later on. So the first rule, it comes under what's called H1. So Rule H1 states that those in charge of vehicles that can cause the greatest harm in the event of a collision bear the greatest responsibility. So just what I've touched on there, and you can see the list there that it mentions. The principle mainly applies most strongly to drivers of larger vehicles, passenger vehicles, vans, minibuses, etc., right the way down, motorbikes. Cyclists and horse riders, likewise, have got a responsibility as well to reduce danger to pedestrians. So you can see how you're working your way down that hierarchy. However, none of this detracts from the responsibility, again, of all road users, including pedestrians, cyclists, and horse riders, to have regard for their own and other road users' safety. And it goes without saying, always remember that the people you encounter may have impaired sight, hearing, or mobility issues, and that might not be obvious. And we'll cover a wee bit about the shared cycle routes. That's probably applies to the most. So Rule H2, this applies to drivers, motorcyclists, and cyclists, and states at a junction, you should give way to pedestrians crossing or waiting to cross a road into which or from which you're turning. Now, that's quite a big one. And I think this was quite a shock to a lot of people. I know I'm speaking to a cycling audience tonight. However, 80% of cyclists are drivers. So obviously, I'm sure a lot of you get your driving licenses as well. And I think it did come as a big shock to a lot of motorists that they now had to give this priority. I take it everyone's aware now of this new priority, the highway code. Do we all comply with it? No, a couple of. I'm not gonna point you out. Don't worry, orange top. It was a difficult one. It really was a difficult one to try and get your head around. It's done in other countries, but it wasn't done here until, as I said, when they brought it into effect nearly 4 years ago. But it's an important one because a lot of these junctions now that you're turning into, or side roads that you're turning into, have got the central islands, and people that are maybe confident, maybe naively confident that a lot of drivers are fully aware of these updates, are just sometimes just going to wander out into that central island and just wander straight across the bell mouth of that junction, not looking, okay, expecting that they're going to be given that right of way. And as I said, not a lot of drivers, or there's still an awful lot of drivers out there that aren't aware of that updated legislation and rules. So just be mindful of that. And it does also apply to cyclists as well. So if you're turning off the main road into a side road and somebody's waiting to cross, that pedestrian does have right of way. You should give them right of way. All right. We'll cover the shoulds and the must and the must nots later on, because there is differences there, and that will all become clearer on just in the next couple of slides. Okay. Yep, cyclists should give way to pedestrians on shared use cycle tracks and to horse riders on bridleways, and only pedestrians may use the pavement. Pedestrians include wheelchair and mobility scooter users. Pedestrians may use any part of the road and use cycle tracks as well as the pavement, unless there are signs prohibiting pedestrians. So you'll see all these cycle tracks. I work in Edinburgh. I know I used to live in Glasgow, so I kind of know the layout of Glasgow as well. And I know they're adopting a very similar process with the cycling infrastructure. And Malcolm's going to speak to you later on about some of the designs. But certainly in Edinburgh, they've got a lot of the dedicated cycling lanes now. They created them for COVID. So during COVID time, they had what's called spaces for people, where they put these dedicated cycle tracks in. They were meant to be temporary, but the Edinburgh City Council have turned a lot of them into a permanent scheme now. Cyclists can use them, but they don't need to. You can still cycle onto the main carriageway. Obviously, drivers can sometimes get a little bit frustrated. They'll keep their horn. They're saying, well, there's a cycle lane there. Why don't you use it? That's your prerogative. Okay, you don't have to. However, they've put it there for a reason, to try and give you an element of protection if you're in that lane. The issue we've got in Edinburgh, though, unfortunately, just now is that this time of year, a lot of leaves in these cycle lanes, and Edinburgh City Council aren't particularly good at clearing these lanes. That can actually pose a bit of a hazard. So as a driver, you should maybe be expecting more cyclists to be staying out with that lane, because they won't want to stay in there, because they'll see it as a hazard themselves. These kind of wet leaves and that aren't particularly well maintained. Yes, that's one thing to keep in mind, just if you are a driver out there on the road. Rule H3 for drivers and motorcyclists. So yeah, this is quite a big one as well. So you should not cut across cyclists going ahead when you're turning into or out of a junction or changing direction or lane, just as you would not turn across the path with another motor vehicle. So you can see there from the graphic, quite clearly shows the cyclist is going straight over the bell mouth of that junction. The car in the picture is wishing to turn left. It's quite clearly got its indicator on, but we should be giving priority to the cyclist cycling past that road. If there are a stream of cyclists, if it's a busy time of the day, there's maybe a group of cyclists out riding. As a driver, if you're turning into that side road, you should be giving way to these cyclists. Do you think you would need to stop your vehicle if you didn't find a gap? Would you have to stop and allow all the cyclists to clear that junction, or do you think you could just cut in front with the cyclists? You need to stop, even if it's on. But people say, but it's on the live carriageway. Oh yeah, but it's going to be the way certainly Edinburgh's going now, like the 20-mile-an-hour limit. So it's a low-speed road. It's in a built-up area. There shouldn't be any hazard as long as you've got that indicator on. If you are a driver, you allow the cycle lane to clear, allow the cyclist to go past that junction. Once it's clear, check the mirrors again, a quick shoulder check as well, double check you're not catching a flashing light out the corner of your eye, and then execute your manoeuvre into that side road. Okay, that's a really important one. And yeah, you should not stop and wait for a safe gap in the flow of cyclists, or you should stop and wait for a safe gap in the flow of cyclists. Yeah. Freudian slip. This includes when cyclists are approaching, passing, or moving off from a junction, moving past or waiting alongside stationary or slow-moving traffic, and travelling around a roundabout. So is that quite clear then from that graphic, what you need to do as a driver? I'm going to probably take questions at the end, but I'll take a quick couple just now, yeah? It's judging it. It's judging it. So I think as a cyclist, yeah, don't just assume that the car is going to stop. You need to read the road and read kind of what other drivers are doing. And this is a big thing. A lot of my training, when I did my driver training in advanced driving, they teach you small things like trying to recognize the behaviors of other drivers and other road users just by body movements. So if you're a cyclist out there looking into a car, have a look to see what they're doing. Are they looking over their shoulder? Does it look as if they're imminently about to execute that left turn? Or are they just looking straight ahead? They've got the indicator on. Maybe they've left it on. I'm not quite sure. But answer to your question, just judge it. Use the brakes. If you think they are going to cut in front of you, yeah, obviously just pull back. But that's really important. As I said, please don't just assume if you're a cyclist out there that drivers are going to do that. Try and read that body language and see what the car is doing on the lane, the carriageway. Does that answer your question? Yeah. What did you? In a similar. Did you have a camera or did you report it? Or? Did you? Sure. Did they get the driver? That's what I'm saying. Did you report you got the driver? That would have been so just on that, we'll touch on that later on. That would have been a careless driving all day long. It sounds as if it was a careless driving. They've not done their checks, the proper checks. Yes, a few expletives maybe thrown in there as well, were they? Yeah, and it's open to interpretation, but and we'll discuss that right at the end of the presentation. We talk about the footage. When we view the footage, we have to then make that assessment of whether that falls into the remit of careless driving or potentially dangerous driving as well. So yeah, just moving on, walking, cycling, riding shared space. Again, just what I touched on earlier on. There is new guidance in the code about routes and spaces, which are shared by people walking, cycling, riding horses. I take it you've all seen that, these shared sort of footpaths and cycle paths, just denoted by that sign there. People cycling, riding a horse or driving a horse-drawn carriage should respect the safety of people walking in these spaces, but people walking should also take care not to obstruct or endanger them. People cycling are asked not to pass people walking, riding a horse or driving a horse-drawn vehicle closely or at high speed, particularly from behind. there's nothing worse when you're on these paths, you know, as a pedestrian, and you've got someone on a race bike and they're flying past you and they've not even had the courtesy maybe to sound their bell. We've got a bell, especially with your children or you're walking your dog. As I keep saying, it's shared space. Okay, the clues in the word there, it's shared space. All right. It's not just an entitlement as, you know, you not just get a kind of entitlement as a pedestrian or a cyclist there. We're all sharing the same space. All right. So just be mindful of that. And yeah, if you've got a bell on your bike, please use it. Slow down when necessary, let people walking know that they're there. Yeah, just using your bell. Remember that people walking may be deaf, blind, or partially sighted. Yeah, don't assume they've seen or heard you. And yeah, just don't pass a horse on the horse's left. Positioning. So this is a big one on the road when cycling. I get asked this a lot of the time in my job, just if I'm dealing with an accident a collision at the side of the road, people ask me about the right position to be in when you're cycling. So the highway code guidance is for you to ride in the centre of your lane on quiet roads. So it's what's called the primary position. So that's being in the centre of the road when it's quiet, and slower moving traffic as well, and at the approach to junctions or narrowings. So yeah, if you are going to execute, if you're a cyclist and you're wanting to turn left into a side road, have a wee quick check, come out into that primary position, left arm signal, and then come round. All right, it tends to be a safer manoeuvre than just cutting a corner or bumping over the pavement. But just always do that wee check. If you are coming out to the primary position at any point, again, I don't want to insult your intelligence, but yeah, have that wee quick check. Arm signal, check, move out. Keep at least half a metre away from the curb edge when riding in busy roads with vehicles moving faster than you. So if you are in that primary position, the road's starting to open up, it's getting wider. Okay, there's no obvious hazards on the road ahead, and you think, right, I've got quite a few vehicles behind me now, then yeah, pull into the side of the road, keep that half metre away from the pavement and let the vehicles overtake you. All right. And yeah, it goes without saying, take care when passing parked vehicles, leaving enough room to avoid being hit if a car door is opened. I did give this example on Monday, at Monday's talk, but I was involved about 3-4 years ago dealing with an incident, and unfortunately a cyclist was coming down a hill at a great rate of knots, and there's been a gentleman who's pulled his vehicle into the side of the road. He's opened the door without checking, and the cyclist has gone straight into the side of the door, and we catapulted over the door and landed in his head, and ended up dying of his injuries. It was horrendous to deal with, actually, a really difficult one. But there was marks all over the roads. My colleagues in the collision investigation department came along. They found marks on the roads. There was enough for them. There was enough evidence, witness evidence, and I think we had CCTV as well, just to back up to show exactly what happened. And unfortunately, the cyclist was carrying, we think, was potentially too much speed down the hill, and they were in the tuck position. So just be mindful of that when you are obviously a cyclist and you're going into a busy street with the parked cars, especially in around maybe in the mornings or kind of rush hour time, when you're maybe expecting people to, you know, return to their homes, but there is a chance that those doors could come open. Okay, so just be mindful of that. And likewise, if you're a driver and you're getting out, have a quick check over your shoulder as well before you open that door. Overtaking when driving or cycling, you may cross a double white line if necessary, provided the road is clear to overtake someone cycling or riding a horse if they're travelling at 10 miles an hour or less. Does everyone know that rule? Is everyone quite comfortable with that rule? Yeah. And that's quite important because there can be a lot of misunderstanding of double white lines and what they actually mean. People are never quite sure what they can do, especially if the speeds are really, really low. But it's quite clear there, and we'll say if there's someone cycling, riding a horse, etc., or a vehicle less than 10 miles an hour, then you can cross that double white to overtake. The guidance for drivers and motorcycle riders when overtaking vulnerable road users as follows. So again, this is a massive one as well. Has everyone heard of Operation Close Pass? The Police Scotland do, yeah? That's good. That's really good. Most of you have actually said yes. It's massive in Edinburgh. I think it's quite big in Glasgow as well. My colleagues through the road policing unit at Govan should be running these events on a sort of monthly basis out in the communities. It's basically a big mat, and we have a police car placed on the mat, and we have a bicycle there, and it's basically like a visual representation of the distance you should afford a cyclist when you overtake them. Okay, so people can see. So it's 1.5 meters is the minimum standard. If you can give more space when you're overtaking a cyclist, then please do. If the road's clear ahead, there's nobody coming out the side roads onto your main route, okay, then take as much room as you can when you overtake that cyclist. You know yourself when you're out there on your bikes, when somebody passes you, and I'm a cyclist myself, and I love being out on the bike, and if I see a car passing me and they've afforded me a greater distance than 1.5 meters, I will give them a nod and I will put my hand up and thank them. Does anyone else do that? Yeah, yeah, I do that because it just makes, they might then check their mirror, and they should be checking their mirror if they're going to be moving back in. And if they see you go like that, then it's that kind of almost, actually, yeah, that was good what I did. And they'll hopefully then go and do it again next time. So if you can afford somebody more than 1.5 meters, please do it. Yeah, wait behind them, don't overtake. Again, won't insult your intelligence, and it goes without saying. If you can't overtake, please be patient. Sit behind the cyclist, don't sit on, and again, I'm speaking to you as if you're drivers, but don't sit in their back wheel. Okay, don't sit in their back wheel, just hang back, wait for that opportunity, and then get the indicator on, and again, just overtake when it's safe to do so. Yes, sir, up the back. No, and I was asked that on Monday, there isn't. If you have one of the recorders, the video recorder dash cams on the rear of your bike, and somebody maybe, whatever it is, you feel somebody's been really, really close to you for, say, 1/4 of a mile, they've not stayed off your back tyre, they've maybe touched your back tyre at some point as they've pulled out, that's careless driving or potentially dangerous driving. If you've got that footage, we would look at it, if we got it in through the DESC system, interpret it, or analyse it, interpret it, and think, actually, they're far too close. There's no distance, but we'd be able to tell just from the manner they're driving how close they were. Ultimately, we'd let the fiscal decide on that. They would then make that final decision if they wanted to proceed in a prosecution based on the video evidence. But again, there's no set distance. Okay. People cycling at junctions, junctions with small cycle traffic lights at eye level. Yeah, we've probably seen them. There's a lot of them in Edinburgh. I don't know, I'm assuming there's quite a few of them here, Malcolm, is there? Yeah, same sort of idea. The traffic light setup for cyclists at the end of the cycling lanes. Just be mindful of them, treat them as if you're a driver. Same sort of idea. People cycling have priority when going straight ahead at the junctions. We talked about that. And yeah, safety in mind when executing all these manoeuvres, it goes without saying. Roundabouts. Code's been updated to clarify people driving or riding a motorcycle should give priority to people cycling on roundabouts. They should not attempt to overtake cyclists within their lane, and they should allow cyclists to move across their path as they travel around the roundabout. Just take care of a roundabout if you see a cyclist. About 2 weeks ago, I was involved in an incident, or it was a close call, shall we say. Did anyone know Conley Bank in Edinburgh at all? Yeah. So you've got the bottom of Orchard Road, just before you turn right to go to the Waitrose. So I was coming down Orchard Road, heading to work at Fetty's, 6:15 in the morning, dark, where my high vis, had my lights on. I was coming down to the junction to take a right turn. So I came onto the roundabout, arm out to the right, and I was conscious of a bus that was coming down Crew Road North. So the bus was about to come onto the roundabout, but obviously it would have to have given way to me because I was on its right. And I've come round the roundabout, and the bus hasn't stopped. It's literally come straight onto the roundabout, and I've had to literally just slam the anchors on both brakes and nearly had a endo, yeah. People of a certain age remember an endo, you hit the front brake too hard, back wheel hops up, basic endo in the middle of the roundabout. And the bus driver was like, came onto the roundabout, and he like looked at me, shrugged his shoulders. Now, if I hadn't looked at that bus or kept an eye on that bus, and I was looking at my exit road up towards Waitrose, I was under that bus. So that was a close call. I get into work and I had a bit of a moment, shall we say. You know, it was a difficult one. So we got in touch with the company. I'll just leave it at that. So just be mindful of that. If you are coming onto the roundabout, please be careful. Look, see what the other cars are doing. And there's not a chance that, you know, what that bus did to me, that's going to happen to you. If you're going round to the roundabout as well to the right, you can stick in the left lane, just keep the arm out, hug the inside of the roundabout and work your way around. Cycling legalities. So the Highway Code clearly identifies all mandatory rules with the words must not. Points to relevant legislation and sets out the penalties. So that's what I was saying earlier on. So the musts and must nots, if you don't comply with them, it's criminal legislation. Okay. The should nots and the do nots may not lead to prosecution. They can, but they may not lead to prosecution, but they can nevertheless be used as evidence to establish liability in court for civil purposes. And Roz will come on and talk about that in the next presentation. Right, so just be mindful of that. The law is the law. Must not. You must not do that. Okay, you must not overtake somebody and use solid whites if they're doing above 10 miles an hour. If you do, dangerous driving, careless driving, dangerous cycling, careless cycling. Okay, the should not may not lead to prosecution, but again, you've got that liability element in a civil case potentially. Where there is no law, regulation, or local bylaw prohibiting cyclists from doing something specifically, they can still be prosecuted for dangerous cycling or careless and inconsiderate cycling. Again, just dependent on the circumstances, but they are offences that are used. Thankfully, not frequently, but they are used. I know of a case a number of years ago in Edinburgh where a cyclist pulled at a junction in front of a car, causing the car to veer off the road, slam into a lamppost, and unfortunately the passenger was killed as a result of the cyclist's actions. Okay. So that individual was charged with dangerous cycling. It was a bigger picture. There's a lot more to it, but there are offences out there. Okay, so just be mindful of that. The careless and inconsiderate cycling, a lot of the time, certainly in Edinburgh, there's a lot of the cyclists will be in the road and then we'll jump up onto the pavement and then go back onto the road, back in the pavement, onto a cycle path, maybe through a shop door, whatever it is, out the other side of the shop, I don't know. But there can be a lot of cycling behaviour that can then amount potentially to inconsiderate or careless cycling. And I know that's been done in the past as well. Yes, sir. Not in the pub at home, sober, but still loving it. Well, that's a good question. Who thinks you can? You know, a few drinks. Is there a law? Is there a drink cycle limit? No, there's not a drink cycle limit. However, if we stopped you and you were under the influence, then potentially we could be looking at a careless cycling, couldn't we, or a dangerous cycling, depending on what the alcohol consumption has caused you to do on that pedal cycle, right? So there's no limit, like driving. Okay, because obviously we can't put points on a license as such. But as I said, what we see as officers, if we stop you, what we smell, we could potentially put you in the breathalyzer, use that as evidence, then that can all amount to a careless cycling charge potentially. Sorry? Not legally. Not legally. However, you can. If somebody voluntary agrees, then they can provide a breath test and that can be used. But ultimately, we're looking for alcohol smell. You keep an eye on you, Roz. Get my Intel systems up to date. You're hovering about. You're about to tell me to cut it. How many minutes? How many? 5 minutes. 5 minutes. Right. Let's do it. 5 minutes. Can manage that. Common law crime, culpable and reckless conduct can be used to prosecute cyclists who cause serious injury. Again, culpable and reckless, an act so careless as to show complete and utter disregard for the safety of others. Again, it's open to interpretation, but again, the circumstances could be from us interpreting CCTV footage, dashcam footage, whatever it is, but that's a competent charge potentially as well. Culpable homicide can be used circumstances where cyclists cause the death of a person. Cycling on a pavement is a criminal offence irrespective of the size of the bike. Is it heavily enforced by Police Scotland? No, it's not. There's common sense, especially it comes to your younger generation, are confident on the roads, but it's not something that potentially, or it's not something that Police Scotland are heavy on with regards to prosecutions. Drug cycling, no limits. However, cycling under influence is an offence, fit to ride, etc. Is what we're talking about. Key messaging, yeah. goes without saying, make sure your lights are on, white lights in the front, red light, rear red lights. You've got a reflector in the rear as well. Must ensure your brakes are efficient, and you should fit a bell and use when appropriate. And look out for blind spots, especially in larger vehicles. I've only got a couple of minutes. Can we just leave them to the end? Yeah. Right. Oh, sure. Okay. Yeah. Go for it. Uh-huh. Yeah. The reflector just needs to be in the back, not in the pedals, on the back. Okay. So that's the most up-to-date legislation, but the pedals, if you want to put them in the pedals, you can. You can. It's just making yourself more visible at the end of the day. What I will say, actually, just talk about the lights and what we should be having in the bikes. The lights at the front, the white light at the front, please make sure that it's dipped. Okay, because I get a lot of complaints about people having their light literally like a headlight, a full beam in a car. So if you're cycling in a cycle path and I come across it myself and I'm on the cycle path, you're getting blinded by this huge lamp in the front of somebody's bike. Please dip it. Okay, because again, if somebody crashes as a result of that light and there's witnesses saying, aye, that light's far too bright, and it was sitting up, then potentially you could be looking at a careless cycling charge. Okay, as it is an offence. So try and keep that light dipped if you can. We, yeah. Well, it's the same principle as a full beam. I mean, what do you do when you've got your full beams on? Yeah. 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 No, I mean, I don't know in the back of maybe the packaging. There's maybe an advisory. I don't know because I've not bought a set of lights recently, but there should be that guide. Yes. Yeah. Well, actually, I can't find anywhere in the highway code that says that. What I've just told you. This is for me. This is common sense. This is again. It's coming back to that shared road space, and looking after everybody else. And if you've got a big high beam shining someone's face on a shared space, to me that's not safe. So I agree. I think it should be. I think there should be a rule in there. So I'll press on, folks, and we'll do the rest of the questions at the end. There is a campaign we run in Edinburgh on an annual basis called Be Bright, Be Seen, a really, really successful event. We go out in person. There we go. There's the close pass mat there you can see with the marked police car and the bike. Again, just showing that visual representation of space. And we stop and engage with pedestrians and cyclists. If they don't have lights on their bike, we give them lights, we give them some high-vis equipment, and basically just do some general kind of engagement with them. All age groups, a young child, that was the Roseburn cycle path last year, and with the buses along with us talking blind spots there's a gentleman from Deliveroo there just getting a high-vis vest given to him, and we do security bike marking as well. I think they're going to be bringing something similar through in Glasgow. My colleagues are in the process of trying to set something like this up in Glasgow, but it is very successful, and there's some of the equipment that we hand out, lights and some high-vis goodies. Yeah, some of the key messages there. I'm not going to go over it all, just let you skim read that. That's some of the key messaging we give for drivers. And yeah, basically just saying it's shared road space to everybody. We're not victim blaming as the police, and I get criticised with this. Right? We're not victim blaming. Okay, a very balanced opinion. I certainly do as a police officer. Okay, because I speak to people as not just cyclists, but as drivers as well. Okay, because as I said right at the beginning of the presentation, got that shared responsibility to keep each other safe on the network. The road safety audits, I'm not going to steal Eric's thunder because he's going to talk to me about that. So is Malcolm. I get involved with the audits. So if there is infrastructure going out there onto the network in Edinburgh, which there is, new infrastructure, I'll get called in at what's called the stage 3 element, where it's been built. I'll then go out there with likes of Eric, Malcolm, and actually another colleague in the room, Richard. Where are you, Richard? Yeah, Richard as well. We'll go out and we'll have a look at it, and I'll make comments to the auditors as well. And generally we agree. I think you're not right in saying, Eric, I would say 10 out of 10 times we agree. What they think is unsafe, I will absolutely agree with them. And that always then goes into the report and gets fed back to the local authority for them to decide if they wish to make that change. And finally, just the DESC system, digital evidence sharing capability, I touched on at the beginning of the presentation there. It's going to give you the ability to report a crime if you have recorded it or if you have some sort of digital footage. Call it in 101, an officer will be allocated a job and an electronic link will be sent to you. You can then upload your journey cam footage and an officer will have a look at it, determine if a crime has actually been committed, and then let you know, and then they will then go on and investigate it. It's not a self-reporting portal, so it's not saying to you, right, here's the link, go and send us 4 hours of your cycling footage out in the Pentlands, and we're going to go through it all. And it's not that at all. It's for specific offences that you wish to report. It's a one-time only link. But it's getting quite good feedback. It's probably giving us a wee bit more work, but I think the way it's going now is it's saving us getting to somebody's house and waiting for them to burn footage onto a disc and then for us to take away and go somewhere else to lodge the production, etc., etc. So it's been changed every sort of few weeks just to kind of make it a wee bit better, but generally the feedback's pretty good on it. So that is it. I've talked for 30, probably nearly 40 minutes. My mouth's really, really dry and I'm well over time as usual. Gentlemen, want to ask me a question? Do you want to take a question? Yeah, yes, sir. No different previously where not really? Yeah. That's interesting because that's not what it's been. That wasn't how it was intended to work. Have you fed that back in? Okay. Yeah, maybe that will come eventually, but I think that's the way they've wanted to run the system just now. What I would do is I would put something in an email, feed it back in. Okay, because the more feedback we can get from the public about it, the more we can improve the system. Yes, sir. But the system is yes. Yes. If it isn't, so it should be a police officer. All police officers should know if it is specific road traffic related. They should be fully aware of the laws with regards to careless, dangerous driving, careless, dangerous cycling. If they're unclear or not sure, not confident, they will contact ourselves in road policing, and a specialist road policing officer will have a look at that footage and either agree with them or say to them, well, actually, I'd maybe think about going down this route as opposed to that route. And generally, that's what my colleagues in division are advised to do. If they're not sure, not confident, contact a specialist officer who will determine exactly what offence that will consist of. Okay.
So one more question. What is a paper? In an urban situation, relatively straightforward. But you know, suburban or rural situations sometimes have fast A road and yeah, they have a meter and a half of grass and then a hard surface footpath.
Yes, it's all part. So it's all part of the road. So the road includes the grass verge, the grass verges. Okay, the best way to look at it is tarmac grass, and then distinguish between that. If there's no what we all commonly know as a pavement, then you just stick as close to the edge of the tarmac as you can to that grass verge. Okay, if it's on the grass verge, then it's off with the road. Okay, potentially depends how far off the road it is. But again, that's open to interpretation. Thanks very much for your time, folks. So I hope that was quite informative, and I'll maybe take some questions later on at the break. But yeah, hopefully you all enjoyed that. Thank you.